Brothers and sisters, have you ever found yourself longing for something so deeply that your heart aches, yet no matter how much you hope or plan, it doesn't seem to come? Today, I want to remind you of a power greater than any plan, greater than any effort, the power of turning to Allah in sincere supplication and the mercy and wisdom that comes with every heartfelt dua. Every human carries desires in their heart, big or small. Some wish for wealth, others for health, some for companionship, others for children, success, or recognition. There are those who long for peace of mind, and others who dream of opportunities they feel will change their lives forever. These desires are not all the same. For one person, a small wish may feel like everything, while for another, something immense may seem insignificant. What is constant is that the human heart is never empty of want. It is the nature of life that we are always reaching for something, always feeling a space within us that we hope will be filled. These desires drive our actions, shape our prayers, and often become the focus of our thoughts. At times, we may feel overwhelmed by them, as though our happiness depends entirely on whether these longings are fulfilled. Yet within each desire lies a reminder of our neediness, our dependence, and our hope for something greater than ourselves. They are signs of our humanity, reflections of our vulnerability, and also opportunities to turn towards the one who is capable of fulfilling them in the best way. Would you like me to expand each of the 25 key notes like this one into flowing paragraphs so they read like a complete motivational speech? True fulfillment comes only from Allah, the owner of all treasures. A person may chase wealth, status, and recognition, thinking that these will bring them peace. Yet they often find that the more they achieve, the more they feel something is still missing. Hearts cannot be satisfied by material possessions or temporary pleasures, because their true nourishment comes from the remembrance of their Creator. Allah is the one who places serenity in the soul, the one who grants contentment even in the simplest of circumstances, and the one who fills the emptiness that nothing else can reach. When a person connects to Him sincerely, they discover a sense of stability that is not shaken by worldly ups and downs. They realize that the treasures of this life are limited, while the treasures of Allah are endless. He gives in ways that money cannot buy peace of mind, strength in hardship, hope in despair, and light in times of darkness. To rely on Him is to discover that true fulfillment is not about how much you hold in your hands, but how much trust you carry in your heart for the one who owns everything. Would you like me to keep expanding the rest of the 25 notes in this deep, flowing style one by one? Supplication dua is the believer's greatest weapon. It is the tool that connects the weak to the all-powerful, the limited to the unlimited, and the needy to the one who is free of all need. When a believer raises their hands and pours out their heart, they are not just asking for something, they are acknowledging their own helplessness and the boundless ability of their Lord. Unlike any weapon of this world, dua has no restrictions, no limits, no time constraints, and no boundaries. It can be made in silence, whispered in pain, uttered in joy, or thought of in the heart when the lips cannot move. It is available to the rich and the poor, the healthy and the ill, the strong and the weak, and it never runs out of power. Through dua, mountains of difficulty can be moved, hearts can be softened, destinies can be changed, and what once seemed impossible becomes possible. It is not a weapon of destruction, but a weapon of light, hope, and protection. When used with sincerity and conviction, it shields the believer from despair and strengthens their bond with the one who hears every call, even before it is spoken. Do you want me to continue expanding all the remaining notes in this same powerful flow, one by one? Dua is never wasted, it always brings benefit. Every time a servant turns to Allah with sincerity, that moment of connection is recorded, cherished, and responded to in the way that is most fitting. Sometimes the answer appears in the very thing that was asked for, granted swiftly and clearly. Other times, the response comes in the form of delayed blessings, arriving only when the heart and circumstances are ready to receive them. And at times, the answer is hidden in protection, where a harm that could have struck is lifted away without the person even realizing what they were saved from. Each dua carries weight, each plea ascends to the heavens, and each word uttered in hope brings with it mercy and closeness to the one who hears all. Even when a person feels as though their requests are not answered, in reality their dua may be building for them a reward in the hereafter beyond anything they could imagine. Nothing poured out sincerely in front of Allah ever disappears into silence. It transforms into goodness, whether seen in this life, felt in the heart, or stored for eternity. Would you like me to keep expanding the next keynote in this same deep and flowing way? Allah may grant immediately, delay for the right time, or replace with something better. When a person asks with sincerity, sometimes the response is quick, clear, and unmistakable, a need fulfilled, a door opened, a prayer answered almost instantly. At other times, what is asked for is held back, not out of rejection, but because the moment is not yet suitable. Just as a seed planted in the soil takes time before it breaks through and blooms, so too does a prayer require patience until its appointed season arrives. And there are instances when Allah, in His infinite wisdom, gives something entirely different from what was requested, something that surpasses the original hope, though at first it may not be understood. What is certain is that every response is shaped by divine knowledge and mercy. The believer learns to trust that even when the answer looks different from the request, it carries within it a goodness that may only be revealed with time. This trust turns every prayer into a source of hope rather than disappointment, because the heart rests on the certainty that Allah's choice is always superior to one's own. Would you like me to continue with the next keynote in the same flowing style? Delays in response are not rejection, but mercy. When a person prays earnestly and does not see an immediate outcome, the heart may begin to feel restless, wondering if the request has been ignored or overlooked. Yet the reality is that Allah never ignores the cry of a servant. What seems like silence is in fact divine care, holding back a blessing until the time it will be most beneficial. Sometimes if something were granted too early, it could harm the person rather than help them, and out of His compassion, Allah withholds it until the right moment. Other times, the delay is meant to soften the heart, to keep the servant in constant connection, returning again and again in humility and reliance. In that waiting, faith is strengthened, patience is built, and gratitude is prepared to flourish when the gift finally arrives. The delay itself becomes part of the blessing, for it teaches that the value of dua is not only in the outcome, but in the closeness to Allah that grows with every plea made in trust. Shall I expand the next note in the same way? Sometimes what you ask for might harm you, and Allah protects you by withholding it. A person may believe with all their heart that a certain opportunity, relationship, or possession will bring them happiness, yet unseen to them are the trials, burdens, or losses that could follow if it were granted. Out of love and mercy, Allah closes that door, even when the servant is knocking on it with persistence. What feels like disappointment in the moment is often protection in disguise, a shield against harm that the eyes cannot yet perceive. Just as a child cries for something dangerous, not realizing the damage it could cause, so too do we sometimes yearn for things that would weigh us down or lead us astray. The refusal we think we are facing is, in truth, care and compassion from the one who knows every detail of our past, present, and future. By holding back what we thought was good, He saves us from pain that we may only recognize much later, if at all, and redirects our hearts toward what is safer, purer, and more lasting. Would you like me to keep expanding the next note in this same reflective flow? Dua is answered in ways beyond human understanding. A person may expect a specific outcome when they raise their hands, imagining only one path for their request to be fulfilled. Yet Allah responds in ways far greater and deeper than the human mind can grasp. Sometimes the effect of a dua is felt in the heart through newfound peace and strength, even before any outward change occurs. At other times, the answer appears indirectly through circumstances shifting, people entering or leaving one's life, or opportunities unfolding in ways never anticipated. There are moments when the response is hidden entirely, stored as reward in the hereafter, where the servant will see blessings beyond measure for every word uttered in hope. The human mind is limited, bound by what it can see and plan, but Allah's wisdom encompasses the seen and the unseen, the present and the future. Each dua travels to him, and the return may not look like what was envisioned, yet it always carries with it goodness, mercy, and a depth of care that surpasses human comprehension. Would you like me to continue expanding the next keynote in this style? Ask with full conviction, never doubting Allah's power. When a servant turns to their Lord with hesitation, unsure if their request will be heard or answered, they weaken the very essence of dua. The heart must carry certainty that Allah is capable of granting anything, no matter how impossible it seems to human eyes. What appears distant or unreachable for people is effortless for the one who merely says be, and it is. Conviction transforms dua from empty words into a powerful declaration of trust, a statement that acknowledges the absolute ability of the Creator. To ask without doubt is to recognize that Allah has no limits, that His treasures never diminish, and that His mercy extends beyond all imagination. When the believer speaks with firm faith, every plea becomes an act of worship, every word a testimony of reliance, and every request a reminder that nothing is too small or too great for the one who controls all affairs. Shall I go on and expand the next keynote in the same deep, flowing way? Speak to Allah from the heart, not just the tongue. Words alone, repeated without feeling, may pass from the lips, but never truly rise from the soul. The most powerful dua is not the one with the most eloquent phrasing, but the one that carries sincerity, vulnerability, and truth. When a person speaks to Allah with the depth of their emotions, whether through tears, whispers, or silent longing, that prayer becomes alive. It is not about rehearsed expressions or borrowed sentences, but about opening the heart fully, admitting weakness, expressing hopes, confessing mistakes, and laying bare the fears that no one else can see. Such words may be simple, even broken, yet they are filled with weight because they come from the innermost part of the soul. Allah looks at the state of the heart before the sound of the voice, and when the heart beats with sincerity, even the shortest call is more powerful than 1,000 empty utterances. Would you like me to continue expanding the next keynote in this same heartfelt style? The best times to make dua include sujood and the last third of the night. In sujood, when the forehead is lowered to the ground in humility, the servant is at the closest point to their Lord. It is a position of surrender, a moment when pride falls away and the heart pours out its secrets in the most intimate way. Every word uttered in that state carries a depth unlike any other, for it is spoken while the body and soul both acknowledge complete dependence on Allah. And in the last third of the night, when the world is silent and distractions fade, the believer rises to a time filled with mercy and tranquility. It is in those quiet hours that the doors of the heavens are open, and the supplication of the servant is given special attention. The stillness of the night wraps around the prayer, and the absence of noise allows the voice of the heart to be heard more clearly. These moments are treasures for those who seek closeness, times when dua is not just an act of asking, but a deep encounter with the one who listens without interruption. Would you like me to keep expanding the next keynote in the same flowing tone? Persistence in dua shows sincerity and reliance on Allah. When a person continues to return to their Lord with the same request again and again, it reflects the depth of their need and the strength of their faith. It shows that they recognize no one else can grant what they seek, and that their hope lies only with the one who hears every call. Repeatedly asking is not a sign of impatience, but of devotion, because it proves the servant has not given up on the mercy of Allah. Each time the hands are raised, the bond between the Creator and the worshipper grows stronger. The heart becomes softer, and the reliance on worldly means diminishes. Persistence removes pride and builds humility, teaching the soul to trust that even if the response takes time, it is still being prepared with wisdom and care. Every return to Da is a reminder that the servant has nowhere else to go but to the one who never turns away those who call upon him. Shall I continue with the next keynote in the same reflective style? Gratitude for existing blessings opens the doors for more. When a person pauses to recognize the countless favors already surrounding them, the ability to see, to breathe, to walk, to think, to love, and to live, their heart begins to overflow with appreciation. This gratitude is not only expressed in words but in attitude, in acknowledging that nothing is earned purely by effort alone, but gifted by the one who provides without measure. The act of being thankful transforms the way a person views their life, shifting focus from what is missing to what is present, from what is desired to what has already been granted. With every moment of recognition, the servant attracts more mercy, more sustenance, and more hidden blessings. Gratitude polishes the heart, removing the rust of dissatisfaction, and allows a person to see how abundant their life truly is. By cherishing what has been given, the believer invites the flow of even greater goodness, for the one who gives loves to increase the provisions of those who appreciate his gifts. Would you like me to expand the next keynote in this same heartfelt and flowing style? Contentment with Allah's decree is part of true faith. It is easy for the heart to feel at peace when life unfolds according to one's hopes, but the real test of belief comes when events take a turn that was never desired or expected. In those moments, the soul wrestles with disappointment, confusion, and sometimes even pain. Yet faith teaches that behind every decree lies wisdom that may not be visible at first. To be content does not mean one never feels sadness or longing, but rather that beneath those emotions rests a steady trust that Allah has chosen what is ultimately best. Contentment softens the sharp edges of hardship, turning complaints into patience and despair into quiet acceptance. It allows the believer to rise above the question of why me, and embrace the certainty that every step, whether sweet or bitter, is guided by divine knowledge. Through this acceptance, the heart learns to find peace not in controlling outcomes, but in submitting to the one who controls all outcomes. Shall I continue expanding the next keynote with the same style? Da is a conversation with Allah, a direct connection without barriers. It does not require an appointment, a mediator, or a formal setting. At any moment, in any place, the servant can turn their heart to the Creator and speak freely, knowing that he is listening with full attention. This conversation is unlike any other, for it is held with the one who already knows the deepest secrets, yet still loves to hear them expressed. In Da, a person can share their fears, their mistakes, their dreams, and their gratitude without fear of judgment or betrayal. It is the most intimate dialogue, one where the soul is exposed and the words, even if broken, are honored. There is no distance too great, no language too limited, no state of mind too fragile to prevent that connection. Whether whispered in tears or silently thought in the heart, every utterance reaches him directly. In this closeness, the believer experiences comfort, knowing that no barrier stands between them and the one who is nearer than their own jugular vein. Do you want me to go on expanding the next keynote in the same reflective style? Even unspoken desires are known to Allah. The heart carries countless thoughts, wishes, and hopes that never find their way into words, yet every flicker of longing is already seen and understood by the one who created it. A person may be too shy to voice their need, too overwhelmed to form the sentences, or too uncertain to express what they truly want, but none of it is hidden. Every silent prayer, every unspoken plea, and every secret tear that never touches the ground is known. Allah is aware of what the lips cannot say, and what the mind struggles to organize, for He knows the whispers of the soul before they even surface. Sometimes, when a blessing arrives unexpectedly, it is the answer to a request that was never articulated but still carried within the heart. This knowledge is a mercy, for it means that even when words fail, the connection remains unbroken, and the servant is still understood in their most vulnerable state. Patience during the waiting period is a test of trust in Allah. When a person makes dua and days turn into weeks, and weeks into months, the silence can feel heavy. The heart begins to wonder if the plea has been heard, if the request will ever be granted, if the hope will ever be fulfilled. It is in this space of waiting that faith is measured, for patience is not simply enduring time, but holding firm to the belief that Allah has not forgotten. Each moment of delay is an invitation to strengthen reliance, to surrender the timeline of the self, and submit to the wisdom of the Almighty. Waiting shapes the heart, teaching it humility, softening its edges, and deepening its sincerity. With every passing day, the servant learns that trust is not proven when life unfolds quickly, but when nothing seems to change, and yet the heart continues to whisper, "My Lord is listening, my Lord knows best." This patience becomes a shield against despair, transforming the waiting itself into an act of worship. Would you like me to expand the next keynote in the same deep flow? Faith means believing that Allah's choice is always better than ours. Human beings see only fragments of reality, limited by time, emotion, and perspective, while Allah sees the entire picture from beginning to end. Often the heart clings to something, convinced it is the key to happiness, yet hidden within it may be trials that would break us. At other times, we feel devastated when something slips away, not realizing that it was diverted to make space for a greater blessing we could not yet imagine. To believe in Allah's choice is to accept that His wisdom surpasses our desires, that His knowledge covers what we know and what we do not know. It is to trust that when a door closes, it was never truly meant for us, and when another opens, it arrives at the exact moment decreed. This belief does not erase longing or pain, but it transforms them into submission, reminding the heart that the one who loves his servant most will never decree except what carries benefit, even if the servant cannot yet see it. Shall I keep expanding the next key note in this same style? Hardship often pushes us closer to Allah through sincere prayers. When life feels heavy and the paths ahead seem blocked, the human heart instinctively searches for a source of hope and strength. In times of comfort, people may become distracted, forgetting the one who provided those very blessings. But when difficulty strikes, pretenses fall away and the soul turns upward in desperation. The pain of trial strips away pride, making the dua softer, deeper, and more real. Words that once were routine suddenly flow with tears, and pleas that once were casual now come from the core of the heart. In that brokenness lies a special closeness, for Allah loves the humbled servant who calls upon Him with sincerity. The very hardship that seemed unbearable becomes the reason for connection, a force that brings the believer back to their Lord. And in those moments of struggle, the servant discovers that weakness itself can be a gift, for it drives them to the only one who can truly heal and provide. Would you like me to move on and expand the next key note in this same heartfelt flow? Every tear, sigh, and whisper to Allah is recorded and valued. Nothing that comes from a sincere heart is ever lost, not the silent drop that escapes in the stillness of the night, not the deep breath released in exhaustion, and not the trembling voice that struggles to form words. Each expression of vulnerability is captured and preserved by the one who knows the weight of every moment. Even the sigh that no one else hears carries meaning with him, and the smallest whisper, barely audible to the self, ascends to the heavens as a testimony of faith. These subtle acts of the heart are honored just as much as loud prayers, for they reflect honesty, intimacy, and reliance. A tear shed out of longing or fear is more precious than gold. A sigh in remembrance is heavier than mountains, and a whisper in solitude is like a secret conversation known only between the servant and the Creator. In His perfect knowledge, nothing is overlooked, and every fragment of supplication is treasured. Shall I continue with the next key note in this same reflective style? Dua is an act of worship, not just a request. When a person raises their hands and calls upon Allah, they are doing more than seeking help. They are engaging in one of the highest forms of devotion. In that moment, the servant acknowledges Allah's greatness, His ability, His mercy, and His control over every affair. Every plea, every phrase of praise, and every confession of weakness becomes a form of surrender that elevates the heart. It is not only about obtaining what is desired, but about showing humility, recognizing need, and affirming faith in the unseen. The act itself, regardless of the outcome, is a declaration that the servant depends entirely on their Lord. This is why dua is beloved in every state, for it turns attention away from worldly means and places reliance firmly on the one above all means. To engage in dua is to worship through vulnerability, to bow in spirit even if the body is not bowed, and to draw near to the Creator with words that honor Him as the sole source of all provision and relief.